Hello there, friends. Lynn Lindbergh of the Health and Fitness Motivation Podcast. And today we're going to talk about kale chips. Yes, I remember, oh my gosh, more than 10 years ago, the first time I started learning about this food called kale that was supposed to be so good for you. And I went to the grocery store and I thought, you know what? I'm going to try it. I'm going to try this kale thing. I have no idea what to do with kale. And it was in the vegetable aisle with all the lettuces and other green, very, very green vegetables. I bought myself some kale. Didn't even know at the time that there is lots of different kinds of kale. Bought myself a bunch of kale, got home, and then thought, now what? Now what do I do with it? And so this was actually, it probably was about 10 years ago because Facebook was kind of brand new, that whole concept of social media. And I remember taking a photo of the kale and putting it on my social media account and saying, what the heck do I do with this stuff? And I was just being silly. I was being totally flippant. And then I got so many responses. I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that a green vegetable could be such a topic that people would like to talk about. But I got more responses than I had gotten on, I think, any other post back then. And I thought, wow, what does it mean? What does it mean? So here's what the life-changing recipe that I came out of with this. And it's called Kale Chips. Now, technically, there are other ways that are slightly more healthy to eat kale than this way, but this way is actually not too shabby. It's actually not too shabby at all. And if you're looking at just getting vegetables in general, this one is actually one that could replace other things for you, like potato chips. Now, I'm not saying you can never eat potato chips again, but I am saying that sometimes this one actually could be as yummy as potato chips. Super, super easy. Here's how it goes. Step 1, you want to get the right kind of kale. Now, any kind of kale will work at all, any kind of kale, but there's a main kind of kale that is the easiest to use with this one is when you go to the grocery store and there's kale where the leaves themselves are all like fluffy and curly and like if you look like if you squished it, it would bounce right back up. That's the kind of kale you want. That's actually one of the most common ones, and it comes in green and purple, and I think that's it, green and purple. That's what I've seen. There is another kind of kale out there called dino kale or lacinato kale, and that is where the kale leaves are flat. Now, this recipe does absolutely work with that kind of kale also, but the amount of chopping and prepping time is like quadrupled. Seriously, at least quadrupled. So get yourself the fluffy kale. 3 ingredients for this one: kale, olive oil, and salt. That's it. Kale, olive oil, and salt. And this one, you actually want olive oil, not butter. Like, the wilted spinach, we're like, put in the butter, yum. This one, you want the olive oil because it actually tastes better that way. It actually won't taste as good if you try to do this one with butter. So kale, olive oil, salt. Take those kale leaves at home, and then they will have a stem on each of them that kind of runs most of the way up the leaf. I highly recommend cutting the stem out. You don't have to, but I don't like them. I think they're just a little too much to chew. They're just like, ugh, you're already eating a bunch of green stuff. You don't want to eat a green stalk that, like, I don't know, seems like it's not made for human consumption or something. So I cut the stalks out of them. Then I take my knife, great big knife, and I cut them into sizes that are about potato chip size. Yep, you heard me, potato chip size. Just take the whole head of kale, and I just do it messy. I'm just like chop, 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 chop. I don't even care if it's exactly right or not. You put that in a bowl, and then you put about as much olive oil on the kale as if you were buttering popcorn, right? You want it all coated, and you want that popcorn all nice and buttery, but you don't want your popcorn so soaked in butter that it grosses you out. Yeah, same kind of consistency here for the kale. Olive oil, mix it in, and then salt. And salt is to taste. I would definitely recommend some salt. And maybe if you're on, like, you can't eat salt for health reasons, you probably already know what your salt substitutes are. But for those of us who don't have salt restrictions, put some salt on, mix it all up, and then dump it on a cookie sheet. Spread it out thin, no more than an inch thick, cookie sheet, 350 degrees for 30 minutes. Now, if you want to be all pro and fancy about it, you'll put them in 350 degrees. Halfway through, you'll check them, mix them up, fluff them up a little bit, and let them go another 15 minutes. Here's how you know they're done. What you're doing is drying out the kale more than you're actually cooking it, right? And so if the kale, you can pick it up and it's kind of stiff, and if you bite on it, it kind of crunches like a potato chip ish. If you think these are potato chips, you will be disappointed. But crunchy, then they're done. And there's no, like, if you undercook them or overcook them is totally fine. If you start overcooking them, they'll get a little brown and they'll start getting a little black. And those actually taste pretty good too. But you just want to find it till it's pretty much just dried out. Pull it out, throw it into a bowl, and voila, you have kale chips. And no joke, before you even know it, you will be able to eat an entire head of kale with this kale chip recipe without even trying. It's pretty super awesome. Your prep time for this is like 3 minutes. Cook it for a half hour. Voila, you've got massive green vegetables that you'll actually enjoy to eat. So enjoy those kale chips, 350 degrees, 30 minutes. What is it? Olive oil, salt, and kale. All right, bye-bye now. Have you checked out couchtoactive.com yet? It's time to do it. We've got quite a few things there that'll help you get your health and fitness goals up and running. I'm Lynn Lindberg. It would be my honor to serve you and help you meet your goals. That's couch2active.com.